Hi, I was in your class before and I already had Screencast-O-Matic downloaded, and it didn't occur to me to just now that probably I could have looked up on YouTube how to move the little picture thing, but I didn't put a whole lot of text on the side, so hopefully it'll be okay. So I chose race, gender, and class. It was really hard for me because I love to read about things like this, and one article would lead me to another article, and then I would end up with blogs that I had read and different things that I couldn't really cite, and so I picked the best citations that I had. I was trying to keep track of what I was reading, but it just got to be so much that I wrote down 5, and I promise that what I'm going to talk about mainly is from those 5, but just be aware that I've read like 90 articles for this, and that was okay because I like to read. Okay, the first slide that I have is about kids that don't fit into a regular subgroup and how to make them and their parents feel welcome. Single parents, gender nonconformists, adopted children, foster care children, all those kids we have in the school every day. You would think that in the middle of America that we wouldn't have these kinds of things, but I have seen, every one of them on the list. I had a 5th grader that was a gender nonconformist, adopted kids for sure, foster kids all the time, single parents, but we just don't, I feel like we're not very sensitive to their needs, and sometimes that they pretend like it doesn't bother them, but of course it has to bother them. So the lady that I read her article said that we need to stop doing some things, which is stop the anti-bullying and anti-discrimination campaigns and start focusing on changing the culture of the school. She was heavily advocating that everybody, from the principal to the cafeteria ladies to the janitors, of course the teachers, everybody was trained in just some basic sensitivity issues, and not that we have to cater to them by any means, but just to be aware that we do have those things in the school, and to stop the kids from saying hurtful things. Stop the kids from saying, why are you wearing that same shirt that you had on yesterday? It could be a foster kid that's what he was wearing when he left the house. To stop the kids from saying, that's so gay. That's personally offensive to me because my uncle is gay, my stepsister's gay, and she and her partner have 2 little boys that are going to be going through all this soon. They're 3 right now. And of course, like everything else, and because I'm a huge liberal Democrat, I just think that education is the key, and the more that you know, just the more sensitive that you are. So she advocates, as a leader, making sure that you stop that before it gets to be a problem. And then if everybody just understands that in our school we don't talk like that we're accepting of everybody, that everybody's here to learn, then you don't have to do an anti-bullying and anti-discrimination campaign because everybody just understands that that's the way things are. And that everybody is worthy of respect, and that violence won't be tolerated in the school. Okay, that was most of her article that was about that. And it's kind of a touchy issue, and so I didn't want to go a lot into it, but I think it is an issue even in Oklahoma this year, and I've had gay parents before. Always women. I never have had men gay parents, but women like 3 times, and even in Oklahoma. So that's something that I just wanted to touch on. And the foster kids, I always feel my heart always goes out to the foster kids, and so I just think part of being a leader in the school is being sensitive to that, and keeping people aware that goes on, and we need to watch for it and make sure that we're all advocating for those kids. like we advocate for all kids. Class issues. This was an interesting article that I read. It said that the United States is doing better than we think we are, and better than the rest of the world thinks we are. And I've thought for a long time that we were probably the only country that was attempting to educate everybody, no matter what. You know, like I think of other industrial nations. I'm sure probably England tries pretty hard, and maybe France and, you know, those European countries like that. But I'm thinking that a lot of countries don't, because they either track them, you know, like onto a music track or a work track or things like that. And so we're getting the percentages from them that are their very best scholars. And so this article kind of backed me up. I kind of am bummed that I didn't try to do some research on it earlier. That if you compare the number of like low socioeconomic kids in the United States compared to what they are, really we go up by like 15 or 16 rankings in math and reading, because per group of kids we're attempting to do a much larger group of kids to educate than they are. So that was interesting to me to find out that I was right. Socioeconomic issues, Hispanic, blacks, and whites. I read a ton on that. That was interesting because a lot of the things said, a lot of the studies had said that we need to quit not talking about it and just say, yeah, that's what it is. We need to figure out how to fix these things. Even between like the white lower socioeconomic kids are doing just as bad as the Hispanic socioeconomic kids and the black socioeconomic kids. It's not really a race issue at that point. It's just a socioeconomic problem. And so they said we just need to talk about it and realize it, and like they'd seen a percentage of the teachers that realized that's what it was and realized that was an issue and just work toward it. A lot of it doesn't, they come to us solo, and so I ended up reading a lot of articles about how President Obama is trying to get preschool back, and I think that we would see a big change if that happened, because there's nothing you can do when the child has sat there for 5 years without any experiences, without having books read to them, perhaps without proper nutrition. So a lot of the socioeconomic divides that we're seeing, because we've had to disaggregate the data in No Child Left Behind, relate back to factors that we have nothing to do with, that they just came to school that way already at a disadvantage. Race issues. I read the articles all about how Alabama decided that they were going to monitor illegal immigration with their enrollment. And I read some studies about, I called my cousin, she's a law student, she's graduated from law school at the University of Arizona, and she told me to look at what the effects of that is on the kids. And in Arizona they don't have that law, but they were the ones that started that law, that if you get pulled over you have to show that you're an American citizen. And so I read a lot of articles about how in Alabama they feel perfectly fine about knowing whether or not the kids that come in, what their immigration status is, and how that's stressful for the kids and the parents, and the kids kind of, some of them just stopped coming to school. It makes other ones a bundle of nerves. They can't learn because they're worried about what's going to happen to their family. And of course, a ton of people have filed suit in that time, and I read some ACLU articles that I couldn't really cite because they weren't written by anyone. It was just kind of information that the group put out. That No Child Left Behind has kind of forced us to look at like it's broken down so very specifically that you have to make it in all the different subgroups that we've had to look and see what the differences are. Something that I thought was really interesting is the Brown versus the Board of Education, of course, says that you can't keep races apart. But then in, I think it said 1994, that they decided that, no, that doesn't sound right, maybe 2004, that they decided that you can't put people together based on race either. It's just the complete opposite. So they're looking how to not make the schools so divided, and all they can think of is socioeconomic status, because doesn't have to do with race. But the problem is that the neighborhoods are still divided up really differently, and just the way that the neighborhoods are grouped, it would cause a huge busing issue. And because some parents are paying higher property tax, they have issues with kids coming in. Read a bunch about charter schools. So, closing the gap, a teacher's role is just to keep all those things in mind and to be mindful of what your attitude is toward the whole thing, toward the kids. They know how you feel about them and how you look at them, and so just to do your part in that. And specifically, I was thinking what the librarian's role is, and I got way sidetracked by privacy issues, because then I started thinking about, what if kids want to check out things, if they are gay, if they want to check out those kinds of things, can those be tracked back to them? And then I read a whole bunch of articles about how a school can't really, those records are private, they're protected under FERPA, and it was a whole big thing. Ooh, and I'm going to run out of time. So what I really thought about was making sure that there is literature in the library. Read a good article about what makes quality multicultural literature, that it's there was a breakdown and steps like that. I would make sure that I wasn't just because there's black people in the book does not mean that that's a good multicultural book, that I need to be selecting quality and looking for books about kids that are adopted and kids that are poor, and just talking about that in the library, an open discussion. If you read all kinds of books about everybody and they're little, then you read books about everybody and they learn. So, and then I just wanted to say that if you have not heard of this Chalcedon, I don't know who these people are, but at some point I was reading, I think it was about Alabama, and I clicked on them, and it's a group of people that think that social issues are just this disguise, and that teachers are being trained in mass to make the children's all Marxists that are in public school. So that was something else. That's just the tip of the iceberg on how hard it was for me to focus on just a few issues. So that's what I learned. I learned some and thought a lot about the library and what I could do in the library to select good literature and to kind of guide the kids on being more accepting.